In 2020, we had one of the worst pandemics of all time. We had lockdowns, a recession, protests, riots. We had all these things happening in 2020. And if you were just watching the news, you might think that we're living in the apocalypse right now. But I think 2020 was actually a really awesome year. And there were a lot of positive things that happened this year that I think a lot of people are missing because of all the negativity. In this video, I'm going to run you through the top 10 most positive, most awesome things that have happened in 2020. All right, now it's important that you know about these top 10 positive things that happened in 2020 for a couple different reasons. First of all, if you've just been watching the news, you've probably been mired in negativity, and you probably haven't been appreciating all the awesome things about 2020 as much as you should. And second of all, and even more importantly, in 2020, there have definitely been some negative things happening, but there have been some unprecedented opportunities for you as well. And I want you to be able to take advantage of those so that way you can be wealthy and happy. Now, when I talk about these top 10 positive things, I just want to say I'm not trying to minimize all the tragedies that have happened in 2020. Obviously, a lot of people have died from the pandemic. There are a lot of serious situations going on. The recession did hurt a lot of people. So I'm not trying to minimize that. I'm just trying to say that's not the full story. There are other positive things going on that we need to pay attention to as well. And you shouldn't exclusively focus on the negative. It's important to take a balanced view and to see the negative, but to also focus on the important positive things that are happening. And that's what we're going to do today. All right, so let's dive into the top 10 reasons why 2020 was awesome. Number 1, we learned that offices are pointless. Many of us were living our life like this before 2020, but 2020 has accelerated the shift towards working from home. Before 2020, there was this big belief that in order to be a legitimate company, in order to be a real company, you gotta have a big office building. But in 2020, a lot of companies were forced to have their people work from home because that was the only alternative. Now, obviously that caused a lot of disruption, but there was a positive side to that. And the positive side was that a lot of these companies like Apple and Google and Facebook found out that people were getting just as much done or more, and the company was making just as much money or more when everybody was working from home. So I think a lot of these companies are going to keep their people working from home and permanently close down their office buildings. And I think a lot of people that have started working from home are really going to appreciate the lifestyle and are going to make this a permanent thing. Now, this is a great thing for 3 different reasons. Number 1, businesses are going to make far more profit. We haven't really seen the full effects of this because businesses have people working from home right now while still paying for an empty office building. But once they realize that they don't need that office building, they can stop paying their rent, stop paying the tremendous expenses associated with an office while still getting the same productivity. That means more profits for business owners. And if you have a 401k or an IRA right now, that means your investments will do better. The second reason why this is better is that it is so much better for the workers, for the people doing the work. Working from home is such a better lifestyle than going into an office, having to deal with all the office politics and having to dress up in a suit every day. And even more than that, working from home, even if you make the same amount of money as when you went into an office, represents a big increase in your hourly pay. Let's say that you were making the same amount of money, you worked an 8-hour day, but now you work from home and you don't have to commute. And let's say that you were doing a 1-hour commute each way, which a lot of people do. If you do that, now you're working only 8 hours a day instead of effectively working 10 hours, and you've just received a big boost in your hourly pay. You could increase your income by using those extra 2 hours to start a side hustle, or you could just use those extra 2 hours to have fun and enjoy yourself. Either way, working from home massively increases your hourly pay and is a better lifestyle on top of that. Now, the third reason why this is a great thing is that a lot of pollution, a lot of carbon emissions, a lot of traffic and congestion is caused by commuting, which is not necessary for a lot of people. Now, some people have to commute. Let's say if you work in a hotel or a retail store, you gotta physically be there. But for a lot of people, commuting was never really necessary in the first place. For most people that worked on a computer, for example. So there's going to be less pollution, there's going to be less traffic, there's going to be less carbon emissions, and everything for the planet as a whole will get better as a result of more people working from home. All right, reason number 2 why 2020 was awesome. The shift towards online dating has also been accelerated. and that's great for a few different reasons. Now, before 2020, the majority of people were still not using online dating, so they were limited to the people that were in their immediate physical proximity. Now, this seems like the best way to meet a partner because this is just the way that humans have always done it. But what I found, and what a lot of people have found, is that there's a better way. Humans have always sold to people in their immediate vicinity before the internet, for example, like door-to-door salesmen, but when the internet came around, it really revolutionized businesses. And I feel the internet will revolutionize relationships in the same way. When you're on the internet, then you have the selection of people in your city overall, not just people that you come into immediate contact with. So everybody has better selections. That means that everybody is going to find a better partner. Everyone is going to find someone that's better for them. It's going to be easier to date, and everything is just going to get a whole lot better. Now, even more than that, some people have come out even better in online dating than other people. More specifically, introverted, intelligent people always struggle in a bar or a club environment to meet people. I know I definitely did. If I'm going to a bar or a club, I could do okay, but it's nothing like at all like being in online dating. When you're in a bar or a club, looks and height particularly are very important, but when you're online, writing skill and literacy become more important, along with your photography abilities and other things that go outside your looks. So I feel for guys like me, for guys that are more intelligent but maybe not as tall or good looking as the average guy, this has been a really, really tremendously positive shift. And for women as well, for women that want to meet the right partner but who don't do well in that bar or club scene, online dating has been a tremendously positive shift, and that has accelerated in 2020. All right, reason number 3, why 2020 has been awesome. There have been incredible returns in the stock market for those who have bought stock at the right time. And if you've been listening to the news, you probably heard the exact opposite story. You can see on this graph here, the news was reporting the crash all the way, talking about how it was the apocalypse. But you haven't heard very much about how in a matter of a few months, we've recovered all the losses from that crash and then some, and we are now at a new market high. If you had bought $1,000 worth of stock in March, here in October, in late October when I'm talking to you right now, it would now be worth $1,600, a 60% gain in just a matter of a few months. Now, I think this is what you need to focus on. Let's say even if you had bought your stock before and you temporarily experienced a big decline, that decline would only have been for a period of a couple months. And in the long run, where I'm sitting right now, you wouldn't have lost any money. It's only the people that panicked and sold at the bottom that lost money, and in my view, they deserve to lose their money. Those of us who held the course are doing better than ever, and even more so, those of us that saw that stocks were on sale, that we could get stocks at a discount back in March, have done incredibly, incredibly well. I myself picked up some stocks back at this time. I wish more in hindsight, but I am very grateful for this opportunity that I got to buy great companies at a very low price. Now, I am filming this video in October 2020. Maybe there's another crash after this, but even more so, no matter what happens after this, I think this rapid recovery shows that the American stock market is very resilient. It will permanently increase people's confidence in the stock market and make future crashes less severe because this recovery was so strong. So I think this crash and recovery has permanently increased confidence and made the American stock market permanently better. All right, reason number 4, why 2020 was an awesome year. All-time low interest rates. And I know this sounds a little nerdy and mathy, but this is really important for you and me, and I'm going to explain why. So, this is the federal funds rate. Long story short, this is kind of the master interest rate that determines all of the other interest rates in the economy. When the federal funds rate is high, you got to pay a lot for a mortgage, you got to pay high interest on student loans and credit card debt. All debt becomes more expensive. When the federal funds rate is low, all debt becomes cheaper. You can take out a business loan cheaper. You can take out a mortgage cheaper. All debt in the economy becomes cheaper. So let's look at where this federal funds rate has been over time. You can see in the recent past, in 1980, it was nearly 20%. That meant if you took out a mortgage, you would be paying 25 or 30% interest, which drastically reduced the buying power of a lot of people. That meant that a lot of businesses could never get started because they could never take out the money that they needed. On the other hand, though, where we sit in 2020, we're right at the bottom of that graph. nearly 0% interest. Now, as a regular person, you can't actually get 0% interest. The banks have to make a little bit of markup, but you could probably get a loan at 3 or 4% interest for your business or to get a mortgage, which is historically unprecedented. So, this is a really positive development for a couple of different reasons. Number one, if you do want to take out debt to fund your business, this is the best time in history to do that. Debt is the cheapest that it's ever been. Number two, it's going to be a lot easier to pay off your consumer debt. If you have credit card debt, if you have a mortgage, this could be a great time to refinance that debt, lock in a low interest rate, and get all that paid off faster. And number three, even if you're not taking out debt directly for a business, and even if you don't have consumer debt, if you have a 401k or an IRA, you are a business owner. You do own shares of different companies, and these companies will be able to take out debt cheaper. That means your 401k and all your investments will do better, and it just makes it that much easier for you to get the financial freedom. One last reason why this is so positive as well. In the past, when the interest rate has been very low, there's been a concern about inflation, which means that each dollar is worth less. During this time in 2020 right now, we both have incredibly low interest rates and incredibly low inflation. So that makes it the all-time best time ever to start a business, to pay off your debt, and to make progress towards your financial freedom. Reason number 5, why 2020 was a great year. People are finally getting that kick in the pants they needed to leave terrible, overpriced cities like New York and Los Angeles and to find a much better place. Now, I personally moved from Boston, Massachusetts, a very overpriced, ultra high tax city, to Austin, Texas about 9 years ago. And it was the best thing that I have ever done. I'm telling you right now. And if you're in a city like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, this pandemic might be the kick in the pants that you need to go and find a better place. Now, I've made some videos about this, but I do think a lot of people could be much happier if they left overcrowded, overpriced cities like New York and moved to a city like Austin or Nashville or somewhere in Florida or somewhere where it's less expensive, they get more for their money, and where they're paying lower taxes. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, those state taxes really add up a lot more than you think. You can get a lot more for your money. You can live the same lifestyle for half the price in a smaller city versus the bigger city. And in addition to being cheaper, it's just a better lifestyle. I feel that people are friendlier. There are great things to do if you know how to find great things to do. And living in a second-tier city such as Austin, I think is a great decision for a lot of people. But a lot of people before the pandemic were kept in place by inertia. They just lived in New York City for the past 20 years, so it was so hard for them to just pack up and leave everything behind. But I think this pandemic has provided the kick in the pants for people to overcome that inertia and to finally find that better place. And I think that once they find that better place, even when things go back to normal, they're not going back to their old shitty city. Instead, they're going to keep living in their better city, and they're going to live happily ever after because of that. Reason number 6, why 2020 was awesome. The nemesis of online business, brick and mortar stores, had their demise accelerated. Brick and mortar retail stores are going out of business faster than ever, and online business is taking off faster than ever. Now, if you work in a brick and mortar store, that might not seem that positive, but that is a very positive development for the world overall for a couple different reasons. Now, I think in 2020, a lot of us as consumers discovered that going to brick and mortar retail stores was never really necessary in the first place. We found out that we can get the same products at lower prices or the same price without having to go to the store. Now, obviously that causes a lot of dislocation in the short run for the people that work at those stores, but in the long run, it's a really good thing. It's a good thing because if the companies don't have to bear the expenses of these stores and of the people that work in these stores, the companies are going to make a lot more profits. Better for business owners, better for investors. Not only that, it's a lot better for consumers. If companies don't have to maintain the expenses of these retail stores and they don't have to pay the people that work in these retail stores, they can sell the same products at lower prices while still making a big profit. Now, obviously in the short term, it sucks for the people working in these retail stores. But the truth is that these retail stores were doomed inevitably, and they were all going out of business eventually, or at least most of them. This has just accelerated the process. So now these people will be able to retrain, and their participation in the modern online economy will be accelerated. Even though it sucks in the short run for them, it's going to be a good thing in the long run. Final reason why this is a great thing. A lot of pollution, a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion is caused by these retail stores. If there were no retail stores, as we found out during the pandemic, pollution and traffic would be tremendously reduced. If you care about the environment, you should want all these stores to close permanently, and you should be happy that the shift to online business has accelerated. All right, reason number 7 why 2020 was an awesome year is that the level of consciousness of a lot of people was raised, and they learned that they should tune out the fear-mongering of the media. And I'm going to provide you with just one example of this. Behind me, you can see an article published in The Atlantic, very prestigious publication, talking about when Georgia reopened their state or eased some of the COVID-19 restrictions a little bit sooner than other states did. They basically said that it was going to be the apocalypse, that it was going to be mass death, hundreds of thousands of people dying, that it was essentially equivalent to, quote, human sacrifice, is actually what they said. Now that we have the benefit of hindsight, was the fear-mongering of The Atlantic accurate? We can see it was not. States like New Jersey and New York and Massachusetts imposed very severe lockdowns, but yet they did the worst. And if you look all the way down on the bottom of this, you can see that Georgia was actually one of the states that did the best, despite easing their lockdowns much sooner than other states did. So the media got this one wrong. It wasn't really the apocalypse that they predicted. Now, you might agree with my opinion on lockdowns, or you might not agree, but I just kind of want to generalize this point. This isn't just about the pandemic. This is about everything. The media has predicted so many apocalypses falsely that they have lost all their credibility. For example, y'all guys that lived through the Y2K bug, do you guys remember that? The media said that that could be the apocalypse. The media said that the subprime mortgage crisis back in 2008 could be the apocalypse. The American economy could never recover. And even recently, the media has said a lot of different things could be the apocalypse that never really came to pass. For example, do you guys remember when net neutrality was repealed? Something as minor as that. It was all over the media that this was going to be the end of the internet as we know it. But yet, I am still talking to you on the internet right now. It wasn't really the apocalypse. So let's just generalize this point. It's not just about the current situation. Whenever the media predicts the apocalypse, tune them out. They are like Chicken Little. They have said the sky is falling too many times. Only credible sources should be taken seriously when predicting the apocalypse. The next time the media tells you that the apocalypse is coming, don't listen. All right, reason number 8 why 2020 was awesome. We all learned the importance of family and relationship a lot more, and we all got our priorities straight. I know that I did when it comes to family and relationships, and I think a lot of other people did as well. And I'll just give you a little example from my personal life. In the past, when I've broken up with a girlfriend and when I've been looking for a new relationship, I would usually take a year where I was kind of partying. My goal was kind of to hook up with as many girls as possible. And where my goals with relationships, I can see in hindsight, were kind of shallow. Not only when it came to dating, but I could see with my friendships sometimes, I developed a large amount of shallow friendships, which having the hindsight of having been through 2020 are not the most meaningful friendships. After 2020, I realized that shallow, unfulfilling relationships or friendships shouldn't really be my priority. And that's why I made it my priority to find a great relationship immediately after my last relationship ended. And I think that's one of the reasons why I found my relationship right now. I think a lot of people too got their priorities straight when 2020 hit. A lot of people are not pursuing shallow relationships and shallow friendships anymore. They realize that when shit hits the fan, these kind of friendships and these kind of relationships don't really make you happy or mean anything. The only thing that's going to be really meaningful in a crisis or when shit hits the fan is deep relationships. Relationships with your family or with your partner or with friends that you're really good friends with that you can hang out with even in a crisis. These kind of relationships are worth much more than a larger amount of shallow friendships or shallow relationships. I think a lot of people realize that, and a lot of people, like myself, will be permanently better off for that. All right, reason number 9 why 2020 was great is that we are going to be far more prepared for the next pandemic, both physically and psychologically. Now, when this pandemic happened, it was a historically unprecedented event. Nothing like this had happened for 100 years. So as a result, admittedly, our government, the US government, and many other governments around the world were not very well prepared. There was low stockpiles of PPE, things like masks and gowns and things like that. There were low stockpiles of antiviral medications. There wasn't that much research into going into antiviral treatments and vaccines. But this pandemic has woken everybody up to that. And everyone is going to be a lot more prepared for the next pandemic. And it could have been worse. The next time a pandemic hits, even if it is more severe than this one, we're going to be a lot better prepared. And humanity as a whole has been immunized against viruses generally because this kind of served as a wake-up call. Now, even more than that, a lot of the crises caused by this pandemic were not actually caused by the virus itself. It was caused by people's reaction to the virus, or the panic. For example, the ridiculous toilet paper shortage. That wasn't really caused by the virus itself. It was more caused by panic buying. There was also meat shortages and shortages of a lot of things where there didn't really need to be. It was caused more by hoarding and by panicking than by the virus itself. When the next pandemic hits, I don't think that people are going to panic as much. People are going to realize that they don't need the panic buy, they don't need the hoard, and a lot of these crises that happen, I don't think are going to happen again during the next pandemic. So we're more prepared, and when the next pandemic hits, we're going to come out of this a lot better for it. Reason number 10, why 2020 was awesome, is that people in my generation have not been through any type of serious adversity. And because this is the first serious adversity our generation has faced, I think we're going to be a lot stronger for it. Now, this is a picture of what my grandparents' generation went through. World War II, where a huge amount of the male population died and everybody else went through serious hardship. My parents' generation went through the Vietnam War and the Cold War, and again, some really tough times where people were seriously thinking that they might go through nuclear annihilation. In my generation, though, I was born in 1985, for me and everybody younger than me, there hasn't been any type of serious crisis like that. There hasn't been any type of serious war. I've never been afraid that I would be annihilated from a nuclear attack. We've never really gone through serious adversity like previous generations. Now, this has been the first serious adversity that we've faced, and I think because of that, a lot of people in my generation will be stronger for it. Of course, it's generally a good thing that things are good. And I'm very grateful for that we haven't been afraid of war or nuclear annihilation. But there is a downside to things always being too good. If things are always good and people never face any type of adversity, it makes you very weak. It makes you very mentally weak, very soft, and very unprepared to deal with a crisis. If you go through 30 years of good times and then there's a crisis, then you get a lot of panic. And that's exactly what we saw this time around. Now that we have been through adversity, our generation is going to be much, much stronger for it. The next time a crisis hits, whether it's pandemic, whether it's a terrorist attack, whether it's a war, no matter what that crisis is, I know we're all going to do a better job dealing with it because we have now been through a serious crisis. We survived it, so now we know whatever happens in the future, we have the mental strength to get through it. So, those are my top 10 reasons why I think 2020 is awesome. It's been a great year in many different ways, despite all the negative things that have happened, and I hope this video has opened your eyes to some of the opportunities that are out there for you to do well in 2020 and beyond. And if you want to carpe diem, seize the day, and start making more money in 2020, pick up a copy of my book, The 15 Steps to Profitable YouTube Marketing. In my book, I show you how you can start a side hustle, start making money by running YouTube ads in your spare time. I also show you, if you're a business owner, how you can use YouTube ads to make more sales and get more revenue and profits for your business. The book costs $29.95 on Amazon, but through the link on my website, you can get a copy for free. So go to the link below, get your copy of the book, and I'll see you there. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below to let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.